Welcome to The Record Show, your virtual spin around the vinyl industry. Brought to you by Radio Wasteland Records. Yes, Midland has a record store. Here's your host, Jim Gleason.
Greetings from the Wasteland, and welcome to another edition of The Record Show. We've got a fun-filled one headed your way today. Ken Norton is back, and he'll join us with a peek ahead at this week's new releases headed to an independent record store near you. And we'll drop a quarter in for this week's spin from the Wasteland. But first, when it comes to collectible genres of music, there is one that's been on the upswing for the past several years. And this genre, well, actually a subgenre, is that of video game soundtracks, something that has become extremely valuable, just exploding really in both Discogs and eBay. Joining us now is someone that those of you who watch our channel may have seen a few times before. James the Younger, my son, who is on leave from the Air Force this week, so I thought him being an expert in both video games and soundtracks from video games, asked him to step on board to help us talk a little bit more about this. Now, just as a disclaimer, he is under the age of 21 and is an avid gamer, but he's also someone who's also an avid vinyl collector. So what is it about video game soundtracks to you as a gamer that is very, very attractive?
Well, to me, it's having those cool soundtracks on vinyl, because video game music is very composed and people put a lot of time and effort into it to make it sound good and have the world of the video game feel cool and the music with it also.
So bridging that gap from the digital on the video game to the analog side of the vinyl is another great connection to make between these two.
Oh yeah.
Now, the idea of the soundtracks of a video game, I come from an era, I'm not kidding, it's all side scroll. We're talking Defender or Gallagher, stuff of that nature. I really can't get into these, the FPS, first person shooter type games. It's very difficult. But as James mentioned, the idea of a soundtrack that is behind this is just another integral part of a very, very intricate package of everything all together. Now, playing some of the video games, more recent video games with this guy here, or if I'm playing by myself, I tend to turn the music off. It's really a distraction for the old brain as I'm trying to play. But for you, it's just an enhancement.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of great soundtracks out there to video games. You got like Hotline Miami, which has a cool techno soundtrack with the 80s aesthetic to it. You got Devil May Cry 5, which has sprawling rock and roll soundtracks along with cool orchestrals. And you have stuff like Death Stranding, which is whole nother level of that stuff, which is like mellow ambient music with vocals to it. It's really interesting.
So if you're thinking in terms of soundtracks like that for a movie, you've got really two different things to consider. One being the orchestral, symphonic, the compositions, if you will, of a movie soundtrack. But other is maybe music from, and that is popular music that is a part of the movie itself. Video games really aren't any different. You've got both that side of orchestral compositions and popular.
You have the composed music, which is what they use for, like, this what fits the world, and you have the licensed music to some of that too, which is like, hey, this music's in the game, but it's still cool nonetheless.
Now, one side note to this, a very popular game or series of games, Fallout.
Fallout, yes.
Now, there's a radio going constantly. I remember when you would play this from time to time, I would hear not only just popular current music, but stuff going back into the 40s and 50s.
Yeah. Well, the entire thing of Fallout is that the world never got past the 50s nuclear era all the way up until 2077 when the world ended.
Okay.
So now everyone, my theory is everyone still has vinyl from that time and is playing it over the radio. You got like Marty Robbins' Big Iron in there. You got Dion too.
Wanderer and such?
The Wanderer, yeah.
And Sinatra, I've heard.
See, there's Sinatra in there too, yes.
Now, one cool aspect of this is being a record store, we actually have folks that are his age coming in saying, this has happened to me here, saying that I've heard this song on this game. Do you have this by Juice Newton, or do you have this thing by Frank Sinatra? Okay, these are millennials. Where are you hearing this? Well, I heard it in the video game, and it's actually kind of cool, and I'm looking to see if I can find that in vinyl. That's another cool aspect of this.
Oh yeah,
as well.
It is very cool. People come in asking for all this stuff, even if it's just from something else they've heard and it's classic, they will want that on vinyl too.
So there are companies out there that are making new vinyl for a lot of these video games, and that vinyl really does almost become instantly collectible. Whether it's because of the just popular nature of the video games themselves or the limited nature of this, there are some companies out there making some big name vinyl to go with these big name video games.
Oh yeah, this mainly they want to push it out there, and then they make it like one pressing only, just so you have to have it. And one of those main ones is Mondo Records.
Mondo, we're going to show off a little bit of his collection here with this, but Mondo is a great limited press label that they do t-shirts and posters and a lot of other things, but they do have a vinyl side of things. Very limited runs. These things sell out quickly, and they really jump up in value with the likes of Discogs. So what do we have?
So right here we have the Ghost of Tsushima soundtrack. This is a game that came out in 2020, I believe. And for here, it is more like orchestral Japanese music, like stuff you hear in like Akira Kurosawa films. Like, because that was the main inspiration for the game too,
Yep.
was Akira Kurosawa. So you hear that like sprawling orchestral with there's an instrument that's called, I do not remember what it is, but it's like the sort of violin, but not.
Okay.
So you have that. I'll take that. Here we have the Death Stranding soundtrack. I mentioned this earlier. This is not the composed, but it's the licensed music that Hideo Kojima really liked. And he thought it'd be fit for his game. So it's all like mellow, sprawling soundtracks and stuff with like vocals and like, it's very interesting to hear this. This is Mondo had only pressed this once, so it's very valuable.
What does something like that run in the aftermarket now?
Up to $200 I saw on Discogs.
So it holds its value well.
Very much so.
Okay.
And here we have the Metal Gear 1 soundtrack. It even comes with a little OBI strip on the back too that I tagged for that. Another Mondo press. I have not seen this one since. It is the sort of weird techno futuristic music for futuristic 2005 when it came out in 1998. But all that techno synth stuff coming from, Shadow Moses and all that. And another great label is Laced Records. We picked this one up a little while ago. It's Resident Evil 2. This is not the remake version, but the original 1998 soundtrack. It is still cool nonetheless. It has that weird horror atmosphere with a liquor on there. You can see that.
Most of these come on colored vinyl as well.
Most of these come on colored vinyl, yes. I think this one is red also. And here's another cool one. This one's one of my favorites. Is the Doom soundtrack. Doom 2016, composed by Mick Gordon. It's all heavy metal, and he actually used a chainsaw for a couple of these for yes.
in there as well. But again, these hold their value if you get a hold of some of the earlier pressings.
These are going up for $50, $60 over on Discogs somewhere. So they're very interesting nonetheless. Another interesting one I have in my collection.
Okay, side note to this, when he was younger, he would play this game, and with the advanced graphics, all I could do was scratch my head saying, why are you looking at something that is from the late 80s?
I still play it to this day. The 2 Minecraft soundtracks. Yeah. It's all the like ambient music that you hear in Minecraft going around in there. So it's fun to listen to, just to do nothing when you're reading a book or something. Doing work.
Background music, essentially.
Music, yes.
What about the collectability on those?
They're still very collectible, up there in the 50s, 60s also. This one's another interesting one. The Red Dead Redemption original score. This is the original score. This isn't the licensed music. This is still the ambient stuff you hear.
The orchestral.
The orchestral, all the stuff you hear during the missions. And along with that is the original soundtrack. This one has all the licensed music and the vocal stuff.
So it's a good pairing to have.
Yes, and
what do we have on there?
We have Willie Nelson on here singing "Cruel World," D'Angelo "Unshaken," Mountain Hymns, just country music because it's 1899. You're like the last cowboy. And finally, we have something very interesting. This is the Skyrim soundtrack. This is the ambient music that you hear just walking around.
So it's really kind of electronic.
Well, for Skyrim,
ambient.
this is like fantasy settings.
Okay.
So it's all like weird fantasy music you hear just walking around. It's more still background music. And to go with that is a big hitter we have here at the store, the Witcher 3 soundtrack.
So you see stuff like this show up from time to time. Now this is over the $200 mark, and on Discogs that fetches upwards around $300 or so. But what makes this interesting, we talk about the demand of the video game soundtracks in particular. If you're looking at that demand on the Discogs pages of any of these releases, you can tell the demand by whether or not it's upside down. Now, The Witcher itself is upside down, but not by a very big margin on the haves versus the wants on the want list. That one looks like it is just like 191 half and 238 watt, but also telling is what it's been regularly selling for, and that is in the $200 to $300 range. So these are, again, very collectible and highly sought after.
Witcher 3 is considered one of the best games of the 2010s. So it's very high collectible to have this, I guess.
Now, did that become a video game or a movie first or a series?
It was a book first.
Okay.
It was a book first, then a video game, then a Netflix series.
Okay. And so this is from the video game.
This is from the video game, yes.
Okay. Now, there are other, we mentioned Mondo. Oh, yeah. There's other things like...
Lace Records.
The 8-bit.
8-bit. I'm 8-bit. Lace Records, yeah, a bunch of stuff going on.
So this is definitely a genre, a subgenre, if you will, of soundtracks to really keep an eye out for. I have one more question for you. I know you're heading back. You're going to go back to the service here, and I thank you very much for that. I'm proud of you, but thanks for helping out. But currently, right now, this is a one to ponder. Okay, if you have a movie that has a soundtrack, and that movie is based inside of a video game, and the soundtrack of the movie based inside of the video game, does that actually then become a video game soundtrack?
I'm going to say no. It's still an interesting soundtrack, though. I just watched this again. My own friends dragged me out.
You've seen it.
I've seen it.
And it's all popular music.
It's all popular music, yeah. There's Mariah Carey on here.
So that's a movie soundtrack and not a video game soundtrack, even though the movie is a video game.
Yes. It still takes place in the real world.
I can't keep up. All right. Well, what are some of your favorite soundtrack albums from video games? Or what are some of your favorite video games that you think deserve a vinyl soundtrack release? Let us know in the comments section below. And thanks again, man.
Hey, you're welcome.
Take care. Time now on the record show for a look ahead at this week's new releases. And after a slightly extended hiatus, we'd like to welcome back Ken Norton from Ingram Entertainment to help guide us through. Ken, glad to have you back, sir.
Hey, thanks, Jim. It's great to be here. Appreciate it.
Now, it's been kind of busy. I mean, up and down. There's been a couple weeks where there hasn't been much, but I think this week, coming up for the releases this Friday, we're looking at some pretty good ones, aren't we?
I thought so, too. Yeah, it's kind of something for everybody. It's a good week for vinyl. We've got a new record from the artist Ash, A-S-H-E, which some are familiar with, some not, but she's very much an up-and-coming artist with lots of focus on her. Her new record's called Ashland, and it's on clear vinyl. In the more classic rock or pop direction, the Beach Boys, Feel Flows. This is a really interesting box set from the Sunflower and Surf's Up sessions. Yeah. Tons of material for the fans who just can't get enough of this type of Brian Wilson, amazing pop architecture stuff. And it has 8 tracks that have never been heard before on 4 LP set.
There is also a regular 2 LP version of this,
regular
correct?
2 LP version too, with more condensed, of course.
Great stuff, and it's from a great era, the Beach Boys as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Very, he was in his genius mode those days, and so people have been delving deeper and deeper into this catalog for years, and fruitfully so. Very best of Everclear. So some 90s rock for you. That's on blue and red splattered vinyl. Very cool looking vinyl for that. For you parrot heads, the Jimmy Buffett songs you don't know by heart. It's some fan favorites recorded acoustically by him during the pandemic, and we got that for you on blue vinyl.
Just some oddities or requests, I think I'd read on that.
Fan requests, and yeah, he took like a poll of fan favorites, things that people wanted to hear him do, and Bill and Ted Face the Music soundtrack. That's coming out this week.
I didn't get a chance to see the film, but it looks like there's some phenomenal tracks from some great artists on that.
Sure, yeah, it's a really pretty good period rock piece, and of course, nostalgia for the movie. Yep. People just love the franchise. Speaking of a franchise that's beloved, the Dark Knight soundtrack. It's partly Hans Zimmer's score, but also some multiple tracks from the. There's a rock soundtrack as well. That's going to be on green and violet vinyl, and that is a brick and mortar exclusive. That's a brick and mortar exclusive variant. Good news, Jim. The Bare Naked Ladies Maroon 20th anniversary did show up.
Good.
So those will be shipping out as well. That's coming out this Friday, 20th anniversary. It's on a Run Out Grooves, so there's a very limited pressing of those, and so those are get them now or they're gone forever.
We have had folks asking about that for some time, and if I remember right, that was delayed from a couple of months back as well, I think.
Yeah, that was pushed back. I guess production issues with vinyl happens a lot.
It's happening. But hopefully, hopefully we'll get enough of them for everybody that needs them or head out as well.
Yeah, we hope so. And I think that covers the highlights for this week.
Okay. Well, Ken, it's so great to have you back, and look forward to talking with you again next week as we continue our march forward through the end of summer. Some big releases, and it's way too soon. We won't even talk about Black Friday yet. We got at least another month, right?
No, we don't know the titles for Black Friday yet, but sometime in September we will.
I've already been getting the question, so I thought I'd just kick that out there as to folks are saying, so what's up with when is Black Friday list coming out? I don't know yet. We'll just pay attention and wait and see.
They're keeping that under wraps, but I guarantee you it'll be in September.
All righty, cool. All right, Ken, you have a great week, and we'll talk to you again. Thanks.
You too.
So one of the great things about having a record store like Radio Wasteland is that I'm always learning things about music that I didn't know and finding albums that I had not yet known about. It's great to see when these things come in and help expand my horizons, if you will. Now that's tied in with the fact that this week we here at the store, and just like folks everywhere, were saddened by the news of the passing of Rolling Stone drummer Charlie Watts. Watts was truly the heartbeat of the Rolling Stones, keeping time behind the bigger-than-life personalities of both Keith Richards and Mick Jagger. So last week, this album came through the store, and I was surprised because I'd never seen or heard of it before, but was very happy to have found it. This is called Jamming with Edward, and it is essentially the Rolling Stones, but with Nicky Hopkins and Ry Cooder added in. This was recorded in 1969 during the Let It Bleed sessions. Now, the story goes, according to Wikipedia, that Keith Richards walked out of the sessions because he was unhappy that Ry Cooder was brought in as a support guitarist. The result, though, was some great jams, including one that was co-written by Charlie Watts himself. That was The Boudoir Stomp by Nicky Hopkins, Ry Cooder, and Charlie Watts. Rest in peace, Charlie. Thanks for all the great music. And finally today, our spin from the Wasteland takes us back to the video game soundtrack albums. Kind of. This is really more of a tribute album to video games themselves. Speaking, of course, of 1982's Pac-Man Fever. This really is a little bit more my speed when it comes to video games. So great stuff on this album from the artists Buckner and Garcia, including some video games that I played all the time when I was a teenager. No more of this first-person shooter. It was all side-scroll or joystick action at an arcade, or in some cases for me, even at a gas station, saving up my snow shoveling quarters just to play some of these games. But Pac-Man Fever, of course, Froggy's Lament, Ode to a Centipede, Do the Donkey Kong. That was a favorite game of mine, by the way, playing the original Donkey Kong, long before all of those Mario Brothers stuff came into being. Hyperspace on here as well. Defender, another great video game from my era. Mousetrap, and of course, Going Berserk. You folks have a great week, and we'll talk to you next time on The Record Show. Thanks for watching The Record Show. If you haven't done so yet, please make sure to subscribe to the Radio Wasteland Records YouTube channel. And be sure to hit that notifications bell so you'll be alerted every time we upload new content.